To celebrate International Women's Day this year, we set about interviewing 15 amazing women of different ages and backgrounds, providing them a platform to share their story. We invite you to join us on their journey of self-discovery as we chat to these inspiring women over 12 episodes in the Celebrating Women series, brought to you by Hannon's 360.
One thing I say or do inspires somebody, that's great. That's what we want to do.
I can't think of any time where I have felt disadvantaged being a woman.
It's a chance to celebrate the diversity of women. So, and that includes, women all across the world from all cultures, and actually even trans women. I'd like to include acknowledgement and celebration for trans women.
You'll learn about the challenges that these women have faced, their achievements, and their advice to women around the world.
Had a lot of people tell me, don't do it, you can't do it, you're not going to be able to survive it. Even my partner at the time was not keen on me doing it. So it's sort of like, but then it almost became a challenge. Like, well, if they think I can't do it, I'm going to do it better.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day, you spectacular woman.
With it being International Women's Day, an opportunity for us to celebrate wonderful women who've inspired us. Who's someone throughout your career and even throughout your personal life that you can reflect on who's inspired you?
Nice question. I come from quite a matriarchal family on my dad's side. So my grandmother was very strong. My aunties were very strong. All of their husbands had businesses and really all the women ran them.
Yeah.
But my Auntie Anna was probably the one person, and I have to mention my mother, who has been an incredible role model. But my Auntie Anna, she went into a very male-dominated industry of laser cutting. She started as a part-time office woman. She then went into, she grew into the general manager's role, and then she eventually ended up buying the company and running this multi-million-dollar company. And she was just so good at the tech. She was so good at the people. She was so good at the business. But she was really generous and giving, and so she didn't lose any of that feminine energy, but she was just so good at everything else. So I hugely admire her.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey, Anna.
Yeah. Thanks, Auntie Anna. Is there a particular woman in your life who's inspired you the most?
Yeah, well, there's a couple. Mum's always inspired me. She's a feminist, so being around her has been amazing. But I think the most person that's inspired me would have to be my daughter. She's definitely been a massive mirror for me. That's allowed me to face my own fears and work on myself so I can break the cycle and not allow her to keep, relive the same fears that I had when I was younger. So I think she would have to be the most inspiring person for me.
So I love that that we can actually learn from our children, and often we look up above to people who've achieved something that we're wanting to achieve, or people that have gone before us. But often the learnings are right within our own home and from our children, who, like you said, mirror back to us, and a greater reflection of who we are. And they can be so brutally honest. I know my kids have been brutally honest with me at times, and I think that ego thing that you talked about, like, it's really important that we remove that, because sometimes our children are there to be our teachers, but if we have that ego there, we're not going to enable ourselves to be open to that advice that they have for us. And sometimes it's not formal advice, sometimes it's informal and just in the comments that they make offhand and whatnot.
Reflecting on the women that have inspired me, I have to say I'm more and more inspired every year, and of the women that I see, my friends and colleagues that are just doing some pretty amazing things in the world, out there in the world, but also in the world of business as well. So in lots of different professions and areas of life, which has been fantastic. So but I guess reflecting back, really the main woman I can think of was actually my grandmother, who
That's lovely.
so she was born in Greece and she came to Australia. Now my mum will kill me on this. I think she must have been in her 20s maybe. Anyway, so with my auntie, and then she had my uncle and my mum in Australia, and she, through certain circumstances, ended up being a single mum. So I think she was working like 2 or 3 jobs.
Oh, wow.
And she learned English really well. Like, her English is really, really good. And she's 93 now, and she's had such a tough life, but she just has shown so much love for her family. It's just been absolutely beautiful. But she's just managed to keep forging ahead, learn a new language, learn how to do everything for herself and work 2 or 3 jobs and take care of her family, which is amazing. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So I'm just like, that's, I don't know how she did it, but yeah, she did. She's pretty amazing. So
yeah, that's incredible. I just, I think I'm in admiration for anyone who can leave their country and travel to a new country with a new language, with a new culture, and not only survive but thrive through that. And then, as you said, be a single mum, knowing that it takes a village to raise a child, and for her to potentially not have the same level of support, I think is just absolutely incredible.
I have to say, Jackie, you're amazing. Like, I don't know how you do it. I honestly, like, the amount that you get done within your daily day is just awe-inspiring. Of course, I look up to my own mum, who just was always there for us no matter what. So on a mothering level, my mum is my idol, because I just thought she was an absolute angel all through my life. And so I've always wanted to be like her as a mother. And then people like you that can just fit so much into your day and be so successful and so supportive. And I have these meetings with you so late at night on a Friday night, and my eyes are sagging and I'm yawning, and you just look fresh as a daisy still. So there's people like you that will inspire all your clients as well. So but other than that, I think there's so many amazing people out there. I couldn't even put a finger on it, to be honest.
Well, I appreciate your very kind words, and yes, our mothers are very important to us, and as we get older, I feel that we've got a greater appreciation for how truly wonderful and inspiring they are. And when you're young, you don't quite appreciate how many balls they hold in the air, and I think they've always got these, like you said, your mother's such an angel, and they make it look so easy. It's not until you get older that you appreciate that how difficult it is, but they've mastered it. So I can certainly attest to that, and can relate to that as well. You're such a strong person. Have you always had that strength, or is that something that throughout your career or through your personal life where you've been able to build on those things?
No, I think it's always been there. I think mum and dad probably don't take enough credit for what a great job they did raising us girls, because dad's like, oh, your mother was just a florist and I was just a plumber, which is why he opted for private tuition for us for school, because he's like, oh, I needed someone that was gonna teach you the grooming and the deportment and the etiquette and all these things that I didn't feel like we could teach you. But I think he really undercuts himself, because we were raised in a household where we were allowed to have opinions. They were allowed to be voiced in appropriate times. And so I think he just naturally raised 2 really strong and confident women. I think also just being part of a minority group at times, whether it's female, my sexuality, whatever, I think you're forced to have that, grow that bit more, get that bit more strength, even if it is a fake it till you make it situation.
Just being around, majority women all day, every day, I see what they do. And, a lot of them are doing the majority of the household, raising children and things like that, as well as some of them are the breadwinners of the family, and they're just doing so much. And it's just, it's really impressive. I mean, I don't have kids myself, but I think just raising children in itself is a full-time job. And I think we do a lot.
I think that's probably, if I can relate to you, I think that's as I get older, I appreciate the things that my mum used to do, or other females that I've had in my life. And my sister, she was another inspiration or mentor, or somebody that I look up to, and they kind of just did it effortlessly, or they did it without complaint,
or they just got in and did it, and I think because of that, I didn't quite appreciate how amazing they were. But as you get older and you do it yourself, you go, actually, this is pretty hard. So I think I might need some tips on how you actually go about doing this, because you guys made it look a little too easy. So I feel that's how
I definitely agree. That's 100% what I think too.
I suppose my mum is probably the person that comes to mind the most. She is, I don't even know how she managed what she managed when she was younger. When she was my age, I think she already had 6 children, which just blows my mind. So she, mother of 7, and then she ran businesses with my dad. Just an absolute workhorse. I don't know how she managed it all. And I'm just so lucky, I guess, reflecting on career, the opportunities that we have now that just weren't afforded to her generation. For example, so she trained as a teacher. Mum was a home ec teacher, but as soon as she got married, she had to give up working because you weren't allowed to continue working as a teacher once you were married.
Yeah.
Which is just phenomenally strange concept to even think about. So, and by the time the laws had sort of changed and you were able to return to teaching, she had 5 kids, so she just couldn't juggle that. So yeah, I guess my mum, she just blows my mind at what she's been able to do in her lifetime and how hard she's had to work to just give us all of the opportunities that we can. I'm lucky, I've also got 3 older sisters that are fair chunk older than me too, so I've always had them ahead of me to see what you can achieve. And I guess with the upbringing from my mum and having my sisters around, I was never in a position where I didn't think that I could just do whatever I wanted.
Yeah, I suppose growing up there wasn't too many working mums. I know my mum stayed at home and my grandmother as well. And then when you listen to their stories, particularly my grandmother, where her husband was killed in a car accident, and she had a baby and a 2-year-old, so she had to take them with her while she was working. And it was a sense of survival. And my mum, she was working right up until she had my sister, and then she didn't work until after when I suppose my mum and father separated. She started working then, and that was, we stayed with our grandmother, and that. So yeah, you had family, and there was no benefits or that for women, and they had young children, so it was taking them with you or leaving them with a family member.
I think my mum, of course. My mum was just ordinary. She never had university or any kind of, she was just a housekeeper, and she worked part-time, and somehow she managed to keep us all together. And she had adventures, and she just brought us up in a way where things didn't matter. So things didn't matter what you'd look like. None of those things were ever emphasized in our lives. And I really think, looking at the influence of social media on young women these days, I really feel that was a great gift my mum gave me.
For sure.
I've never thanked her for that, but I will do that. So we didn't grow up with those pressures of having, branded clothes or anything like that.
Yeah.
Now lately, I think my main inspiration is Jacinda Ardern. I think she's just an amazing example of a woman in leadership who has not foregone any of the things that make women uniquely women, right? Kindness and compassion, tolerance, inclusion, all those things that she's brought to leadership. And I just think she's an aspirational role model and ought to be for our generation of women.
Yesterday, I met a really inspiring lady called Kerry. She has been a surf lifesaver for 44 years, and she was one of the first female lifesavers in Australia. And she was telling me all about how That she couldn't use the lifesavers toilets or the lifesavers change rooms. She had to go get dressed in her car or at the public toilets down the road. They had to push really hard. There was a group of 3 women who were doing their bronze at the time, the bronze medallion. And if one woman failed one of the practical exams, they all failed. So just like that, not write them off, because they made it so hard for them, because it was a man's world. It was a man's job. Men are the lifesavers. Now, in the lifesavers clubs, there are plenty of women, and there are plenty of patrol captains with their silver medallion, with all their awards, you know, IRB drivers, advanced resuscitation, the 4-wheel drive, and SSRV. They've got all the awards, and they're absolutely killing it out there. And it's so cool to see. But it was just really inspiring yesterday to meet Kerry. She's down in, she's in Coolangatta, or is it Currumbin or Coolangatta now she lives. And she's been a lifesaver for 44 years. And she still kicks everyone's ass out in the water.
That's incredible. And I think that probably just links back to what we said about the pioneers that have come before us, like Kerry. Did she sort of comment on where the changes have come from? Like at what point, or was she part of that change in terms of pushing for?
She was part of the change. Yeah, she was one of the first female surf lifesavers, because she wanted to be. Her kids were there. Her kids were in the water, and she wanted her bronze medallion. She wanted to be out there because she knew she could. She knew that she had the ability to, but the men just doubted her. So it was really cool talking to her, to hear some of her stories, and she had to do it a couple of times and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until they let her through. But then it's like anything, you know, once you break through, the people after you it begins to become the norm. At one stage it's like, no, that can't even happen, and then it becomes the norm.
Thinking about those wonderful women in the workplace, or even within your personal life, is there someone who, I guess, that you'd like to pay homage to that inspires you?
I've got a few key people in mind. I've had a couple of female bosses over my career, but there was one specifically that had really high expectations of me, and she trusted me, and that really allowed me to step into that space of confidence and allowed me to speak up and to be confident in my decision-making abilities. And I think having those leaders that empower women are really, really important. I think it was extra powerful seeing her as a woman in the workplace as well, in that strong leadership role. But yeah, her empowering me to make decisions, to fail, to get back up again, to feel confident in my own sort of power was really strong, and something that I've tried to carry with me in all different roles.
Talking about International Women's Day, there's so many people, so many women in particular, that I'm sure have inspired you throughout the way. Who's somebody that comes to mind when you think about an inspirational woman?
Well, I thought about this before this interview, and it's actually the opposite for me. It's not a woman that's inspired me, but it's a man. And it was my father, but it's not in the way that you might think. He didn't encourage me to take up the law, okay? It was the exact opposite. When I left school, he told me, and I quote, you know, this isn't a job for a woman. And he said that with love at the time, because he didn't want his daughters to have the demands professionally and in your family life that being a lawyer imposes on any lawyer, okay, particularly one in sole practice even. And he wanted us to have children. He wanted us to have happy lives, because that's what he had. And he was really the inspiration behind me wanting to become a lawyer, for one reason, because he said that I can't. Okay, and that it's not the job for a woman, and you're not able to do it. And part of me wanted to prove him wrong.
Thank you for watching another episode of Celebrating Women. Join us tomorrow as we ask these wonderful ladies how being a woman has influenced your career. Like and share to help celebrate women.